I'm Linas Gricius, and today I'm going to present you a presentation about the add-in development in NAV. So thank you for coming to my session. I hope you will enjoy it. You will learn new things. Quickly about myself. I have a little bit more experience than 3 years in NAV development, and mainly I've been doing the core NAV development, just NAV development, but as well I have experience in upgrades. I've been doing upgrades from old NAV versions to the new versions to NAV 2009 and 2013. So I'm quite familiar with the new versions of NAV RTC clients. As well, I have some experience in .NET development, so that's probably why I was quite interested into this session and this topic of add-in development. And so let's get started and let's move to the agenda. And the first thing what I will give you is a quick overview of an add-ins. So from my experience, when I meet people and I meet NAV developers, I see that most of them, I could divide them into groups, because the first group usually are these developers, these people who haven't heard anything about add-ins. Another group of people, they're usually these people who heard something about add-ins but haven't tried to create any of those. And that's why I think this quick general overview, what is an add-in, where it is used, a little bit of technological point of view, where does it stand in NAV, might give you a better start to before getting into code, into development. Later on, I will guide you how to create a very simple add-in step by step. So if you haven't ever created any add-in, we will go through some slides and some examples how you can create a new one, and how can you integrate it in NAV. Afterwards, specifically for this session, I developed some more add-ins. And just why I've done this. These add-ins, these 3 additional add-ins, they're a little bit more complicated comparing to the one that we will be developing. And why I've done this, I wanted to show you some of the possibilities what you can achieve by creating add-ins. And I hope that you will get some new ideas, that you will be inspired, and maybe you will see that, okay, we can create something really interesting from add-ins, and you will integrate it into NAV. And afterwards, more or less like the last topic will be for a quick tips and tricks of debugging. So if you haven't programmed in Visual Studio of the C#, so I think this will be these few tips and tricks should be really valuable for you, because they will probably save you some time. And one of the tricks is, which should definitely save you time, creating an add-ins. And of course, if we have some time, we'll go through the question and answers part. Okay. First of all, is there anyone who tried to create an add-in in NAV? So, yeah, raise your hand. Okay, I saw the first one, so I will give you a T-shirt here. Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, that's great. So, what is an add-in? Add-in is actually it's a very simple thing. It's a Microsoft Dynamics NAV custom control, which is created in Visual Studio, and afterwards it's integrated in NAV. So in this slide I added some of the examples which are in NAV 2013. So you can see at the top of the slide, it's I think most of you have seen, it's a add-in for displaying charts. On the right side it's RSS reader, and on the left side is I called it a ping pong add-in. Since it does not have any visual representation, it does not have any graphical interface, I just wrote down the name of it. So it's I think you know that in NAV pages it's quite difficult to, or it's more complicated to use timers rather than it used to be in the old NAV forms. So to solve this issue, you can try to use a Microsoft provided ping pong add-in, which can help you to solve these issues when creating or using timers inside of the pages. Okay, so quickly about an add-ins. Where do they are usually used? So mostly they are used, of course, for extending abilities, how you can represent visually data in RTC client, in NAV RTC client. And so, for example, for charts. And you know that RTC client is quite a little bit restricted because from the standard controls that you have like, you can have add fields to show simple text information, images, some of the system pages, for example, for the Outlook integration, but more or less it's quite restricted. So that's why you need to create a control add-in to have an ability to show information differently. And there are as well integration features. You can integrate various different applications inside of NAV. So you can integrate Skype, you can integrate Link, so you can try to integrate different things, different applications inside of the page, and these things really looks really fine and really interesting when you see them develop. About the add-in model, here I just draw a very simple, the simplest one I could draw, technical part of how add-ins look like in the big picture in NAV. Of course, NAV is a model view control, 3-tier application. So the bottom we have a database tier, then application server tier, and the client tier. So inside of the client tier, we have our RTC client, and by meaning RTC client, I'm always speaking about Windows RTC client. We have our add-in. And you can see that in this picture, add-in is standing on the top of our RTC client. It's meaning that add-ins, they are based on client technologies. They work on the top on RTC client. So if you have some software installed in a client machine and he's running RTC client with an add-in, so and this add-in then can use this additionally installed software. So you can use all the technologies that the customer has on its machine. So it runs totally on the top side of the client machine and RTC client. And if we take a look a little bit deeper about the RTC client and some of the features that it gives to an add-in, how to extend it. And there are basically these 4 interfaces and technologies, I would say. It's called site interface, data binding, event, and methods. So these different parts, they give an ability to integrate and communicate over app add-in inside of RTC client. So for the site interface, it's you have an ability to automatically check when the fields inside of the page, for example, visible field, enabled field, or editable field, has changed. And whenever one of these, for example, kind of style expression as well. So anytime one of these properties is changed, you can write a code which automatically will be triggered inside of your add-in. So we have like a one-to-one relationship between these things. It's kind of like an event. And you can take a very simple example. How can you use it? So, for example, we have a text box control add-in, and it's created and used in a page. Then imagine if a page is in a view mode, the text box still will be editable. It doesn't take into account whether the page itself is editable or not. When you create a very simple add-in with a text box and you're not checking anything about the editability, then you see here, I just added a screenshot as example. These 2 fields are standard NAV fields, and the third field, it's a .NET component. It's an add-in. So it's so by actually using these functions on editable change inside an add-in, you can automatically manage things about editable properties. So you don't need to have any additional coding. You don't need to add any additional coding in CL language. You can check everything and manage everything from the control add-in code inside of the control add-in about some of the properties of the page. I mean. Then we have a data binding. So this is a feature that add-in can use inside of the page of NAV. So for those who do not know, when you're adding how to add an add-in inside of a page, so there's a specific property inside of each page field, which is called control add-in. So inside of this property, you define the add-in name. So for the source expression and data binding, so you can directly bind or map, you could say, global variables or database fields to the add-in by entering one of these fields or global variables to the source expression property. And this is a huge advantage because you don't need to do any additional CL coding inside of NAV pages if you want to manage data with an add-in. So for example, for this additional description, we can automatically change the data inside of the control add-in, in the code of the control add-in, and all the changes will be automatically put into a database. So this is a data binding. Then I think most of you have seen, who has done at least some development in NAV pages, that each field has an on-control add-in trigger. So by creating add-ins, you have an ability to call these triggers outside of the add-in. And it's very simple to call them. You just execute one very simple method with a few parameters, and instantly the trigger on control add-in will be executed with the CL business code which you have written. So it's a very simple example could be that imagine that you want to check out, you have to do some code inside of NAV when the user double clicks on your add-in. So you need to create an event inside the control add-in, then as soon as the user double clicks inside it, you just call a specific method from the add-in to execute the additional description here as in this example on control add-in trigger. So it's very simple to call these functions. And later on I will show you some examples how you can call these triggers outside of the add-in, inside of the add-in. And one of the other things that you can do with add-ins when you're doing development with it, you can create various methods inside of the add-in and then directly call them from NAV pages by CL code. So this gives you a lot of flexibility because you can pass some data with these methods or just call some functions to do stuff inside of the add-ins. So it's a nice thing. It's a nice thing. Okay, so we can imagine that if you want to try to create an add-in, we still need some tools. So basically, you need just Microsoft Visual Studio, one of these versions, which I mentioned here, and of course one of the NAV versions, 2009 and 2013, because add-ins goes only with RTC client. And you need the NAV developer license since you will need to do some changes inside of the pages. And today I will not be speaking about 2013 R2 version. I will be just speaking about the older one, just 2013. And all the examples which I will be showing to you as well, they will be of the 2013. So now imagine that we want to try to create a very, very simple add-in. So which steps do we need to do? First, we develop an add-in in Visual Studio, and the result of the add-in is just a plain DLL library. So it's a client library, and then we move add-in DLL library to our TC client directory. The one thing which is great, that you do not need to install somehow into machine it. You do not need to install the DLL libraries using some tools. You just copy paste it and that's it, and it works. And all the add-ins, they need to be strongly signed before you can use them. So when you sign an add-in, you need to get a public key of the add-in. So this is the third step that you need to take when creating an add-in. Taking a public key, it's a 16-character string, and it's very simple. You have many tools how to achieve it. And the fourth step is to register your add-in inside of NAV application. And this is as well a very simple thing. You need just to open specific table, add a name, public key token, which we just received on the third step, and that's it. And the last step, of course, we are now integrating our created add-in in a page. We're doing development inside of NAV. Okay, so let's start with an example. So I think most of you know that in RTC client, there's a problem when you need to set focus on a specific field. And to achieve this, in the old client, in the forms, it was very simple. You just write a current form dot field name dot activate, and that's it. And your mouse instantly will focus on the field. So I've seen some customers where they had really interesting solutions based on this activate functionality. And after upgrading to the new version of 2013 to the RTC client, they had quite big problems with it, because they couldn't use the activate functionality. So what we will try to do right now, we'll try to, I will show you a very simple add-in, which allows you to use activate functionality in RTC client. So to make a focus on a field. And let's take such perspective from the business and from the user. Imagine that each time the user has to, after he finishes modifying all the lines in the sales orders, he needs to jump instantly to one of the fields. So in this example, I added that to additional description. So he needs to modify this field every time he finishes modifying sales order lines. So of course, if he goes, it's nice to have just a shortcut key to jump directly to this field. So in old version, it's by using activate, it's really easy. You can create an action, assign a shortcut key, and that's it. So if you push the button, I just jumped here from the lines. But in RTC client, it's a problem to make this work. So in order to do that, you need to have a control add-in. So here in this RTC client, in this example, I have created a very simple add-in here. This is a text box of the add-in, and I can jump just directly as well now. For example, I'm here on the lines. I'm pushing the button to activate, and here you see that it just made a focus to a field. So it kind of worked like it's using an activate, which does not exist anymore in RTC client. So now when we know what we wanted to create, we can take a look quickly to the code itself, how it looks like. How does it work? Okay, so we can take a look first. I will guide you now step by step what you would need to do, what code you need to write in order to have this add-in. But I will not be writing the code since it will take too much time. I have already prepared it. But I will comment on some things and actions that you need to do in order to have this kind of an add-in. So when you're creating an add-in, first you need to use a client extensibility framework. And this framework is provided by Microsoft together with an NAV installation. So, and by default, it's put into the RTC client directory. So here we can see we have a Dynamics framework user interface extensibility. This is the framework that we're using, and it has a the default path. So, and this framework is mandatory if you want to integrate your client control add-in inside of NAV. It contains various interfaces, classes, so you need to use it. And as well, you need to add, afterwards, you need to add some namespaces. So you could use the created, the reference libraries. And okay, so this is pretty clear, we can move on. Before each class, there's a specific attribute called control add-in export. And this attribute, of course, comes from the reference we just added. And inside of it, you have a name. So you can choose whatever name you want, but, well, Microsoft states that it's good to have the naming by standard. So it's a company name, then project name, I think, and then the solution itself. So, and where this text is used, so inside of this attribute, this text is used when you're registering your add-in inside of NAV. So this is the name of the add-in which you will be using inside of the pages. So you will be referencing this name, and as well, NAV application server, when is looking at, when he's going through the DLL libraries, he is looking for these namings. So this is an important thing to know. Then when creating a class, we are extending the base class of the control add-in base. And if you take a look, you can see some of the actions or methods which this class have. Okay, so I will talk about this interface a little bit later on. So now, what we need to do, we need to create a very simple text box, because this is the text box itself which was used in our sales order. This is just the same text box. So we simply just write down the global variable for it, and then we have a very, very important method called createControl. This is the default method which is instantiated during the add-in, when add-in is being instantiated, and this method returns to the page the control itself. So here I'm creating a new text box. I'm creating just a new object of the text box, and I'm returning it. So basically, whatever you're returning here is your add-in in some sense. So you can have here a picture box. You can have here forms with different and lots of functionality, lots of buttons, but when you're returning it, that's what you're returning to NAV pages. Then what I have created here, so basically, if I would close this class only with this kind of code, we would have an add-in. So, but it would be quite useless. It will be just only a very simple text box. So if we go through more, we need to create a method to make it focus. So here I have a activate text box method, which makes a focus on our text box. It's very simple code, you can see. And I'm using an attribute, application visible. This is as well mandatory to use before each of the methods. So if you're not using application visible, these methods, they are not visible from the CL code. You cannot execute them. So anytime you want to have a method reachable outside of the CL, inside of the CL, you need to add this attribute before the methods or functions or properties. Okay, so we have some other things here. So we have a data binding as well installed. So the data binding, if we take a look to the sales order here, I implemented this add-in inside of the sales order. And if you go to properties, so in the source expression, we're binding this field additional description to the add-in. So this field which I've added, the additional description, is a string-based field. So in order to bind it, you need to implement a specific I-value control add-in definition interface with the key mark of the string. And in 2013, you have more different data types that you can bind, because in the older version, you can bind only string and blob, I think, and now in 2013, you can more or less bind everything. You can have a date, so you can have here as well string, integer, blob as well, so you can have different things. You can work with the data now much more flexible. Okay, so we have some properties, and these properties, they are working together with the data binding. So we have a property has value changed, which informs whether the value which informs NAV whether the value has changed inside of the add-in. And as well, we have a method, no, not a method, but property called value. So this is a data binding part, meaning that if we want to set data outside of NAV, or to get, whenever the user added some text inside of the text box, by get we're returning it to NAV, and the data binding works, then it's implied into the database. And I as well added some function here called onEditable change. It's I'm tracking when this field is not editable and when it is editable. So where I previously showed you an example that sometimes you might have problems with these properties, editability, visibility. So by implementing or by overriding this function, which is provided as well from the extensibility framework, you can track. And here I'm tracking when the editable field has changed. I'm just changing the text box editability as well. So and that's it. I think this looks pretty simple, and if we look to the page itself, how it's implemented, we can look later on a little bit at the page. Okay, so this is the code, how it looks like inside of the Visual Studio for this add-in. And as well, as I've mentioned, you need to sign your add-in before building it, before putting it into the RTC client. So to do that, it's really simple. You need to go just to the solution properties, go to the signing tab here, and to add a new key for the signing, to sign your assembly. And when you will be building your application, you will be signed with a specific key to the DLL library. Okay, so this would be the first step, to create an add-in inside of Visual Studio. And the next step would be to Okay, and the next step would be to copy the result of your created add-in, to copy the DLL library from Visual Studio to RTC client's directory add-ins. So, as I've mentioned, you do not need to install it, anything, just copy-paste it, and that's it. And I wrote here the default directories when you're doing development. So it's when you're programming in Visual Studio, it's usually in the documents, Visual Studio 2010 projects, and at the bottom here is a default RTC client directory. So the third step is to export the public key token outside from our created DLL library, which is our add-in. So one of the easiest ways as well is to do it is to use the strong name utility, which is provided together with the Visual Studio installation, with the Visual Studio SDKs. And here we can see a very simple example how to take this public key token. The syntax of this tool is to sn-t and then the DLL itself, the library. And as you have then afterwards you get a result, you get your public key token, which you will be using when you will be registering your add-in inside of NAV. Okay, so when you get your public key token, the fourth step is to register it inside of NAV page. To register, so there's a specific table called client add-in. So what you need to do is just open it, and there are two mandatory columns here. One of them is called control ID name, another is public key token. So inside of the first column, control ID name, you provide the name which was an attribute, control ID and export attribute inside of the Visual Studio, which I showed you before. Which I showed you where before each class, you're providing a control ID and export attribute with some specific name. So you put here this specific name to register your add-in. And as well, you need to add a public key token, which we just received in the previous step. And that's it. Now your add-in is registered and inside of the NAV. And when you're doing these actions, I thought that it's possible, and it might be sometimes a very good idea to split the tasks in your company. For example, if you have a .NET developers working with in your company, then sometimes you can divide the roles. You can give for .NET developers to develop an add-in in Visual Studio, and you as an NAV developer can just do the integration part inside of NAV part. Because sometimes it can save you some time if you do not have a bigger experience in .NET development. Okay, before going to the demo, I want to quickly show you about that in which I just showed you about the setting focus and activate functionality, and how does it look like inside of the page. So, as I've mentioned you, when you're putting add-ins inside of the page fields. So here I have an additional description field, and I have a property called control add-in. And this property, it has a lookup to the table where all the registered add-ins are put. So you see, and that's it. Then when you're using methods inside of NAV from your control add-in, we can take a look. I have created here a very simple function, activate description here. So you're just calling from the fields. So this is an activate text box. It's a method of the add-in which we created. So if you go to current page, controls, activate additional description. So this is the method from the add-in. This is the method which is right over here. Okay. So, as well, I prepared, as I've mentioned, you some additional examples, some additional add-ins, which should maybe give you some ideas as well when you will be doing your development with an add-ins. So the first one is a PDF viewer. So I applied it on the sales invoices, I think. Yes. So the PDF viewer, I think, is a pretty useful add-in because in many cases, customers want to have an ability to see PDF documents which are, for example, linked to the items or linked to the sales orders, any sales documents. And they want to see them inside of the pages of NAV. They do not want to have external applications popping out when you try to show this information. So for this purpose, here I can demonstrate you a PDF viewer add-in here. I created it as a fact box. And you have an ability as well to iterate through the pages. You can save it as a copy, you can print it, you can zoom it, and so on. Everything goes smoothly. If you think that the view is quite small one, you can anytime create this add-in, not as a fact box, but you can create it as a new control inside of the fast tab. And then you will have a much bigger and wider view of your PDF documents. So if go to a different PDF viewer, so you can see that you can see different types of documents. And actually, there are many ways how you implement an add-in and which technologies to choose. So one of the ways would be to use plain Windows forms or panels and then some external libraries to create a viewer inside of these forms. But most of these libraries, they're not free, and those ones which are free, they're quite complicated to use. So one of the different things how you can achieve the same functionality as I've showed you here, as well I use this functionality, you can use a web browser control. So this is not a PDF, some kind of, not an application, but specific libraries to display PDF documents. It's just more or less an Internet Explorer controller which shows you PDF documents. So this might be a quite good way to open different file types. So here I'm just opening PDF documents, but you can open images, you can open a variety of different file types. So for example, have you seen that you can easily hook it up or to the movies, for example? You can have a direct link here with and show some clips inside of NAV pages. So it's so by using this control, you can achieve this. Okay, so now we can take a look a little bit to the add-in code, how it looks like. Just a few seconds. So in the sales invoice document, there's nothing special here. I'm just using a simple external page here. And only one thing what I'm using, I have on after get current record, I'm passing the URL address to my fact box. And this fact box contains all the created add-in, which shows the information. And the PDF URL, it's a new field which I added inside of the sales header. So we can take a look to the PDF viewer fact box here. And it does not have many fields, just one field to directly show the information. And if I would take a look to the properties, what I added here, I binned my add-in with a URL global variable. So NAV control add-in is taking information from this variable and directly just showing the information based on this variable. So whenever I'm changing the value of the URL value inside of an NAV page, control add-in catches it and updates the information. So it changes the thing, but it is displaying. It changes the document, it changes the movie, it changes the images, so it changes. And we can take a look a little bit to the code. Okay. Now you will see some familiar things you have seen before. So we have a control add-in export attribute. This is the name which now is I was using for registering. I'm using a web browser control, so it comes together. I'm not remember exactly whether the different references or the system Windows forms. So. Okay, so it's just a very frequently used control. You can easily find it out how to add it. And then we have our create control method, which returns the control to a NAV page. And here I'm just pretty much creating a new web browser control. I added that the internal shortcuts will not be working. I'm assigning some default URL before the control is being run. And that's it. And I'm returning my created control. Then we have some data binding parts here. So, for example, for the value, I'm checking, this is the value which is binned to the URL inside of the page, inside of the source expression. So I'm just checking whether the URL has changed, and when it's changed, I'm just assigning a new URL address to the to my web control, and that's it. So you can see that it does not involve a lot of coding, but you can have pretty nice features, or you can have pretty interesting functionality by creating add-ins. Okay. Now I would like to show you one more example. It's related to the charts. So you can use standard NAV 2013 charts to display different information inside of the charts, but there's always time when you might need to have something specific, something unique, something that you want to create it by your own. So in this case, you can create your own charts. You can write an add-in to show charts. And one of the problems, or one of the maybe bigger problems when creating charts, is how to pass data from NAV to the add-in, because you need to pass much more than just the field which is in the source expression. You usually need to pass multiple different values. So there are different ways how to achieve this. One of the ways is to create a XML document inside of the NAV page, then just put this XML created document, fetch it to the add-in, so it would display the information. So for the charts, I have created I based it on the documents, the purchases. Purchase. Yes, I think I added to the purchase invoices. Yeah, so you can see here an add-in which is displaying information about all the sales document counts. So it displays the counts of the codes, orders, invoices, and some other documents. And so how does it work? We can take a look as well now to the code to see. As well, this time I added it as a fact box, but it's not mandatory. You can try to put it in a fast steps and check how it works. So the fact box itself is based on the vendor. So I am linking my fact box with the document field by from vendor number. And inside of the data table here, as well as in the previous example, I do not have any specific fields, or don't have many of them. I have one main field which shows the information, shows the add-in itself. So what about the code? So I added few functions on after get current record. And the first function, what it does, it just calculates all the needed information, calculates sales document counts. And the second method, then the second method collects the data, puts into the .NET component all this data, and passes this .NET component to an add-in. So to pass the data to an add-in, I'm using a data table .NET component here. And this data table is quite useful because it more or less represents a little bit or looks like database tables. It has columns, it has rows. So you can have a structural way how to pass data from your NAV application, NAV pages to the control add-ins. So here I'm using a data table constructor to get a new data table. Afterwards, I have some additional functions which are adding columns to the data table. I'm creating new columns, and I'm adding row data for each of the column. And afterwards, when all the information is added, when all the information exists in the data table, I'm passing it to my control add-in by using a method which I've created. It's called setChart. So by having these external methods, you can easily pass different data types. And here we have a data type of a .NET component. So this is one of the more interesting ways how to pass data from NAV pages to control add-ins. We can take a look. I think I named it incorrectly. Okay, so this is a code inside of the Visual Studio for displaying charts here, which I've created. And as well, when I was creating these charts, I created it in a little bit different part or style than I was when I was creating different add-ins. I here just created a simple form, imported it. So I just used an add new form, Windows form, and then I added some controls on top of this form. So when you're creating something very, very complicated, you can add here a form, then use the designer to drag and drop different controls, and it will make much easier for you to create an add-in. And then, as in the previous examples, I'm just creating this. I'm creating a new form, creating a new object, and then adding some properties to it, and I'm returning it to NAV. And I have only one function here to show the charts. So this is the part where I'm passing my data table to display all the charts, to display the data inside of the charts. So with this code here for the form controls find, I'm getting the control which I've needed. So I'm getting the chart, which is on top of the form. So if I would like, I would open here. This is a chart control. No, it's taking some time. Okay, so this is a chart control which is put on top of the form. So I'm just getting this chart control, so I could use it and bin the data table directly to the chart. And that's it. When I binned everything, chart automatically displays information from my data table. So we can create quite complicated data tables and pass it to the charts to bind it, and they should display all the information. Okay, and so far I've shown you just two examples, but I have the last one as well, and this last example is based on the drag and drop functionality. And in many cases, I think drag and drop is a very good thing to have in different applications, because users do not like to write texts, or they want to work intuitively. That's why probably all the tablets, all the different touchscreen devices are so popular. So having an ability to use a drag and drop inside of the NAV, I think can boost the morale of the people who are working with the NAV. So for this example, I thought that it would be nice just to show drag and drop functionality which you can implement in the NAV pages. So I added it on the as well in one of the documents. And I added it on the sales quote. And why did I add it to the sales quotes? It's because it has a reason. Because I thought from the business perspective, we might have a solution where, for example, customer is working with a client, he is having different communications through emails, and after some time, when he's creating a sales quote, for example, he wants to have this information, these emails, inside of the, or hooked up directly to the sales quote. So there's a possibility just to create a simple add-in here and to use a drag and drop for this. So, for example, if I'm going to my Outlook account, I'll make it smaller. Okay, so I can just choose an email and just drag and drop onto my add-in. And you can see if I go to the, for example, the next one, I can drag and drop a different one, email. So you can drag and drop different things. What I was just here dragging and dropping, it's just emails from the Outlook, but you can handle many things. You can handle files, you can do the coding to handle different types of objects. So, and now if I would try to run the mail, which I just added. Here I have it. I have all the conversations and all of these mails, all the information it is saved inside of the NAV in the tables as a blob file, as a blob field, and it is saved together with all the attachments. So we have all the information inside of NAV moved to the data table. And you can run it anytime you want and then reply it, for example. So this is just one of the examples how you can use drag and drop. But as I've said, you can have various different things inside of it. This is a previous example I had. So we can take a look to the code, how it works. For this example, I think that having it on the fact box is a good thing to have because it does not take too much space. It's easier for the user to work with because you can just close it on, close it up again, just to work with it. So if he does not want to put an email, he can close it, collapse. Okay, so as well in the main page of the sales quote, I did not add something very complicated. It's just a plain fact box. I just linked it, so the fact box is based on the sales header as well as the sales quote, because the email is being saved in the sales header table. And if we take a look now to the email page here, again, just one field, nothing more, just to show the mail message, to show the control add-in. And for this example, I think we should firstly look at the Visual Studio part, not as before in the page part. So we can drag and drop add-in. Okay. So for the beginning is more or less the same. So I'm using Outlook application classes for it to handle the Outlook application. So what does this classes do? They are handling whether what I'm doing and what I'm doing with my Outlook application. So in the create control method, I just create a new objects for it, and the main base for the drag and drop, it is based here on the picture box. So when we are seeing a sales code here and we're seeing our fact box here, it's just a plain picture box control, which displays only the image, but it has a possibility to have a drag and drop functionality on top of it. So here, with this different line of code here, I'm just getting the image from the client directory. So I put the image at the same part where the DLL library stands, where the control add-in is copied, installed. Then I'm assigning an image to the control itself. And then I'm assigning some properties, setting some properties so that my add-in would be able to run, to have a drag and drop functionality. And I'm using some delegates, function delegates here to manage the events when any of the actions are done for drag and drop. And I'm returning it to NAV, so that's it. And when now we can take a look, for example, for the picture drag and drop part. So how does it actually work? It takes when I'm moving the mail to try to drag and drop, and when I'm dragging it on and releasing the mouse, he's checking what I have selected inside of Outlook application. So he's taking into account that probably if I was able to do a drag and drop, so I have marked this mail. So I have to take this mail and save it into NAV. And how does the saving work in this add-in? So I'm just taking all the email information, creating it, saving it into the temporary directory and the temporary file. Afterwards, when I save this information as a file, I'm calling a code, or I'm calling a trigger to a NAV page. So by using this very simple control add-in method, you can call a trigger to a NAV page to execute the CL code. So why I'm doing this? I'm calling to and passing a parameter, a file name, inside of the client directory, so that the server of NAV would take this file and download it into application and to save it in the database. So that's why I use I'm calling this code. And if we take a look to the page, we can see that we have an email on control add-in trigger here. And this is, it handles what I have sent. So as just an example, I added an index too. So for different, if you're calling something from different methods, you can, in order to identify what piece of code should be used or handled, you can put in the index parameter a different number. So here I'm just putting number 2. And that's it. And I'm just saving it in the database. But how does the functionality runs when I'm, for example, pushing this button, run mail? And this button, it's not a button of the control add-in. This button is a factbox button here. So it's a CL code which I am running here. So what I'm doing, I'm just take a look to the actions. This is a function run mail. So I'm as well just exporting the file outside from the database, from the database table, saving it temporary and uploading it to the client side. And afterwards, I'm running the method from the add-in. And the method which I'm running is called run mail here. So what it actually does, it takes the file name, which was sent here from the CL, from the NAV page, and it tries just to execute with the default application. Definitely you can figure out different ways how to implement this functionality. It's just one of the ways. But it works, so it's and it looks really interesting because, as an example, for the drag and drop to save emails, and I've mentioned you can have totally different types, different file types managing. So you can push your images so that they would be saved automatically to the database. If you have some specific internal application running which has its own different data types, maybe you can handle it as well. So of course it depends on the business part. So these were 3 add-ins I wanted to show you, specifically which I've created here for this session. So I hope you will get some ideas from it, and you would see that you have quite lots of things what you can achieve by creating add-ins, and you can create really interesting add-ins and applications. And for the last part, I wanted just to show you quickly some debugging tips and tricks. And one of them is, if you have less experience in development in Visual Studio, this can be very useful for you. Especially, I think when you're creating an add-ins, debugging sometimes can be a little bit more complicated. So launching debugger during the runtime could save you, I think, lots of time. So we can take a look to one of the examples I have created. For debugging. Okay, so this is the add-in, which is totally the same as was the add-in with the Activate functionality, which we reviewed the first one. Nothing has changed. Each code line is almost the same, but there's only one difference here. I added here a code line called System Diagnostics Debugger Launch. So when this add-in will be running inside of NAV, as soon as this code line hits, a debugger will launch. And you will be able to actually debug add-in inside of the NAV when it's running in the page. I think this can save you lots of time, so I can show you how it works right now. I added it into, I think, sales returns. No. I think to the sales credit memos, yes. So you see, now as soon as I tried to run the page, a debugger option window appeared here, indicating and asking me to choose which development environment I want to use for debugging or whether I want to open a new one. So we can use already the existing one. And if I push yes, okay, Visual Studio is popping up. Here, you can see that debugger stopped on the breakpoint here for the debugger launch. And if I go next, okay, the page is open. But let's say we want just to debug the method here, which we have written for Activate functionality for jumping here, just for ability to jump. And actually for this Activate functionality, it's a nice thing because even if you close the Fast tab here, you can, I haven't assigned the shortcut key here, but it automatically opens the Fast tab, so it's not a problem with the closed Fast tabs. And okay, so we want to debug it. What we can do here, add, for example, here a breakpoint. And you can add it on the function itself. So let's try to do this again. Run. Okay, now you can see that when we were executing some functionality from a NAV page, the debugger stopped here, and we can do the debugging. We can check the values of the fields, and we can do all the things we need to figure out maybe why our add-in is not working, why it is struggling. And this tip, where one of our employees in our company told me about the debugging, and this tip saved me a lot of time when working with add-ins. So I suggest you, when you will be creating your own add-ins, try to use it. Okay, now we have I have some more examples about debugging tips, I would say, or tricks. So these are very simple ones. I don't know, maybe some of you know it. But for those who haven't been doing development in Visual Studio, I think this might be useful information for you. So the first one is mostly used for the performance. So when you need to check which lines of code or which algorithm works faster compared to another one. And for this, we can use a specific class, stopwatch. Already the name, I think, states what it does. It measures the time from the starting of the stopwatch and ending of it. So we can take a look to some lines of code here. I'm creating here a new object of the stopwatch. I'm starting it. So as soon as you start it, it starts calculating time. So here we have some loop where I'm adding some numbers inside of the list, and afterwards I'm stopping the stopwatch to check how much time in milliseconds did this loop take. And I have another one, another stopwatch with a little bit bigger loop. We're adding the same numbers, and I'm even adding them to the same list. And I'm calculating the time, how much did it take. Okay, so we can execute it to check it out. Now you see the first part of the algorithm took 13 milliseconds. Now the second one took 152, but they were not equal algorithms, because for the first loop it was 10 times smaller than the second one, and the second one already was using the same list for adding new numbers. So in any case, it needed to have a bigger time, and it took more time and calculations to perform all the actions. So this is a really this is a very, I think, useful thing when you're especially having a problems inside of the add-ins or any Visual Studio application with the performance. And just one more thing I wanted to show you, for example, but with the conditions of debugging. So as well as for example, in the NAV 2013, you have an ability here to have a conditions or hit counts when you're doing the testing. So for example, here, what I'm doing, I'm going through the list of the numbers and I'm searching for the bigger ones, for the biggest ones, for the most biggest one. So we might have here a condition, for example, that only if number is bigger than 10, only in this situation, only this condition, the debugger should stop on the breakpoint. So we can execute again the same code here we have for the performance test, and you can see now that on the specific condition, just on this part, the debugger has stopped on the breakpoint. So all of these parts they were skipped. Only when the condition was met, only then the debugger stopped it. And you have different types here for conditioning. You have a hit count, for example. Especially, it's good to use it in the loops. You can define a number after how many records or how many loops have passed. When do you need to call the breakpoint? So, for example, you can write a hit that only after 100 hits, only when after 100 times the loop has gone, has iterated, only then you should run the trigger for the breakpoint. Okay, so that was what I have prepared for the debugging tips and tricks, and I just want to mention you one more time that it's a really good thing not to forget about launching the debugger when you're creating control add-ins during the runtime. Okay, so for the summary here, what we have learned today. So we learned some basics about add-ins. So what is an add-in? Where you can use it, and as well, we created a very simple add-in. So I went through each code of lines, so showing you how to create a very, very simple add-in, just to use it step by step. And of course, we overviewed some more complicated ones. And as I've mentioned you before, I hope that it will give you an inspiration and some additional ideas of creating an add-ins and the possibilities what you can do to create an add-in. So, for example, for this drag and drop functionality of emails, or for displaying video files, or interesting, or displaying information more interesting to the user, not just plain text. And of course, we just reviewed some debugging features here. Okay, so is there anyone who wants to ask some questions? Yes, please. Yes. Do I have to copy my file to each translation, or is there some automated deployment? No, since I know for the 2013, I do not know actually about the R2 version, but in 2013 you need to copy each add-in DLL library to each client, because add-in DLL libraries, they run on the client machine solely, so you just have to copy paste it. I don't know about any so far workaround about it. Okay, welcome. And okay. Can you repeat the question? Can I use VPF? I haven't tried, so I'm not sure. I think this might be not supported. So okay, welcome. So anyone else? Someone wants this nice T-shirt? No? Yes? Okay. Sorry. For the automatic debugger launch here? Yeah, sorry. So the question was about the automatically debugging add-ins here, which I've showed you for this library. So I definitely know that you can use it for the .NET components, not just an add-in here for the DLL, but I'm not sure. I think you will, yes, probably you should be able to write in on automations as well. Okay. You should try it. Okay. 100% sure about it, but since as well you can install various DLL libraries from the .NET as an automation, so you should have an ability as well to run it as a debugger launch. Okay. Yes? Yes, I think I will publish it. I will have to speak with as well with the organizers, because we have spoken that we will publish of course, the slides here. But I will speak it, and probably I think that we will publish the code. It's not a problem. Yes?
What's the best practice to move big?
So I tried, the question was, which is the best practice to move big data sets to an add-in? So what from my experience we have been doing, just we try to move it by XMLs and by this data table property, but I've seen as well a different kind of add-ins which they use the integration with the web services. So maybe it's possible to use web services inside of the control add-in to take all the needed data outside of NAV. So as well, this is a third part, one of the ways as well how we can achieve it. So I think you can try to use the web services for it, for the bigger parts of